Looking through those list of demands, I think there are every single one of them, almost without exception, is a perfectly reasonable demand.
Yeah.
Certainly from the agricultural fraternity. I mean, yes, there are one or two there, like withdrawing from the WTO. I mean, I did raise an eyebrow thinking, why would you want to actually withdraw from the WTO and cancel all trade agreements? Maybe that was just sort of thrown in there just as a part of a negotiating ploy.
Right.
But other than that, yeah, I think all of them are very reasonable. And the other one that stuck out, of course, there was that highlights an awful lot of these issues is the martyrdom of Shubhkaran Singh, who was shot, it appears, by security forces. And this does highlight what actually has happened in the Punjab and across those border regions where the protests have been occurring, is the police response has been disproportionate. It's been actually quite shocking. It's not abnormal for India, but certainly for those of us in the West who constantly rush to support our farmers, who have indeed themselves been protesting. But when we see the reaction of the Indian police and how they treated what is essentially a basic peaceful democratic process demanding for just simple fundamental human rights. When we see tear gas being launched, we see real bullets being fired, rubber bullets on regular occasions, salt pellets are being fired. The injuries that actually have been photographed after some of these protests are absolutely horrific, notwithstanding the actual death of Shubhkaran Singh, who was shot it appears, by an armed policeman with a live round. That in itself is a huge cause for concern. But yes, but certainly seeing tear gas and other things like rubber bullets and salt pellets used, many protesters have been blinded, they've had broken limbs and worse. It's absolutely shocking that we see this in a supposedly democratic nation. And I think, we must continue this plight of the farmers because, of course, the mainstream Indian Godi press, the Godi media, are not really reporting this to any level. And, of course, they're always reporting a very one-sided narrative. It is the pro-Modi narrative that they report. So, of course, your average Indian viewer in India has absolutely no idea really what these protests are about because they are fed a completely nonsense narrative. They don't see the violence that's been perpetrated against these primarily Sikh protesters. And they, of course, the Hindutva social media have been all over this regularly since it ever first started, saying, oh, they're all Khalistanis, they're all terrorists. The whole protest has been hijacked by terrorists, which is absolutely complete nonsense. The fact that there are Khalistani protesters amongst the protesters, that's not in dispute. There are Khalistan flags there by the hundreds, by the thousands even. There's nothing wrong with that. It is supposedly a democratic country, but that does not mean they are terrorists, and it certainly does not mean that they are protesting about Khalistan. They're essentially protesting about their basic human rights. And Khalistan just also happens to be an extension of that.